We're going to start by introducing our panelists. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists, well, first of all, let's look here. Do I have you in the right order? Last time I reversed Google with Foursquare and it was a little funny, but awesome. So Daquana, do you want to introduce yourself first? I'm going to ask each person to just introduce themselves and their company, and we'll just kick it off that way. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Aurelio. I work for NTT Data. We're a major systems integrator, and I do account management and business development for them. My company handles BPO, various managed services, IT services, things of that sort. My group covers technology staffing, so we're one subset of a larger entity. That's pretty much it. I guess a lot of folks understand what technology staffing is. If not, go home.
So one of the things that I've been asking for a definition for at the start of each of our panels, for each one of the meetups that we've done, is to define what a junior developer is. How many candidates in the room or developers in the room would consider themselves a junior developer? Raise your hand nice and proud. It's all good. I haven't written a line of code in 20-something years, so I will raise my hand. Excellent. So I'm going to ask our panelists for their definition of a junior developer. And the reason why is one of the disconnects that we see is a job post that says junior developer, and when you read it, they want a master's degree and 15 years of experience. Has anyone seen that issue? Raise your hand. Okay. So I think as an industry, that's probably something we can work on. So I think it's great to start with some definitions. So Ryan, if you'd like to start, give us your definition of what a junior developer might be, and the number of years of experience might be a good way to start it. We're going to go right down the panel.
My 2 cents is that it depends on the technology. So for example, if you're involved in data, you've been doing modeling, let's say, or working with data warehouses, and all of a sudden you say, I want to be a data scientist. Now, you don't need 8 years of experience to be a data scientist, as a data scientist to be great at it, right? So I wouldn't look at someone with just 2 years of that as junior per se. However, if you're working with something that's more mature, let's say SAP, and you've been working with it for 1 year, to me that's, 1 year of experience in anything. I think it's like going to a company you just started, you just figured out where the bathroom is. You're kind of new at it. So in a general overview, I would categorize that even to a little bit more, up to 3-4 years as junior. For us, we look at folks with 4, 5 to 8 years of experience as mid, then you start talking more senior, when you have more advanced skills. And I'm sorry I'm hogging this here. Where we look at someone that's more advanced, someone who can teach others, who understand more than just the foundation, but the architecture, and talk more to it.
How many developers in the room would consider themselves entry level? It's okay, raise your hand nice and proud. Great, so let's define entry level real quick. So Ryan, we'll go straight down again. Just the difference between entry level and junior.
Yeah, I think entry level, if you've never done it before, then you're entry level. Straightforward for us, for me. If you've gone through school, maybe got a master's degree, and you've handled different projects in a particular tool or stack, well, you're not entry level. You're going to be pretty junior, granted, because you're fresh out of school. You don't have industry experience, because I don't care how many certifications you have. There's a difference between being certified or school taught as opposed to being in a real world where things break. And then you have the business yelling at your boss and your boss looking at you saying, what's going on? So, that's a good point. That's how we look at it.
One of the things that has been coming up more and more at our panels, and it was really interesting a few months back to hear Google's perspective on this, is Bootcamps. So how many of our attendees are currently enrolled or have graduated a Dev Bootcamp? Raise your hand. So what is that? Mark, what do you think? 15, 20% of the room, something like that? Great, so I'd love to get everyone's feedback on kind of what's happening with boot camps today, and do you consider those candidates, yes or no, and maybe why?
I'm going to use the classic HR term, it depends right now. Where's Steve Levy? Steve, where are you? He's outside, okay. Don't spend too much time in the bathroom, Steve. So if you take a look at a guy like Steve, right, same line of business that I'm in, he was an engineer previously. So that means he has that classic training. He has a computer science degree or engineering degree. that to me and to a lot of my clients, for the most part, will carry a lot of weight. Boot camps are great, so I'll tell you 2 quick stories. So I had one manager that I was working with at a major media and entertainment company, NBC, and this guy was into politics. Went to a boot camp. 9 weeks later, he's an associate director for a data analytics group. How does that happen? Awesome. Guy's pretty smart. He, loved it. He had passion around it, right? If you don't have passion, forget about it, right? But in talking with certain folks, not all skill sets or positions, mind you, but certain development positions, you need to understand that foundation and the why, right? So I think, to me, depending on what I'm recruiting for or what my team's recruiting for, or what my client wants, I'm going to be aware of that. So boot camp's good, but the schooling also is key.
So I'd love to learn a little bit more about your process. If you could talk a little bit about, the number of interviews. Is there, an on-site, technical interview? Again, when we're thinking about hiring, let's, be specific for like junior to intermediate developers. I think would be great for the room. So talk to us about your process. Is there a coding challenge? Where in the process does the coding challenge occur? I think it'd be very helpful to learn how each of your companies manage that.
Well, I'm going to crush you a little bit because I'm going to probably have the shortest answer out of everyone up here. I work on the agency side, so for us, we take a different stance, right? Sometimes it's catered towards what the client demands. Client may say, well, I had one position I recently filled where it was one phone call, 40 minutes, got the job offer. Another client where they needed to speak with a person 4 times, then interview, then whiteboard, then meet with a senior leader and the business side. And I said, "What is this guy's not going to be available. What are we doing?" So it really depends on that side. For us, what we do is we take a hard look at the resume, we read it. So everything that Steve just said before is really important. I like to get to know you and see if you're a fit for this position. A lot of agencies, unfortunately, because of the barriers of entry are pretty low, they have a square hole. Are you that square peg that's going to fit? Right? Whereas, hey, I know this industry could be a little smallish, so you might not be a fit for my client, NBC, or today, but you could be for Moody's or something else, right? So we like to get to know you, basically. We're going to go through your background, have 2 conversations. I get involved, and I'm just a dumb sales guy, but I have some smart people on my team, but they do the heavy lifting. I still want to get to know you, soft skills, get to understand your background, why you went from one job to another, right? So we do a lot of that heavy lifting up front, right? We'll do a WebEx or a Skype, right? I want to make sure we see that if you're applying for a gig, we're talking to you, you're the guy that shows up on the interview, and you're the guy that shows up on the day we start. We have folks that, would scam. And then it's what the client wants. I try and prepare my consultants or candidates as much as possible, and I don't want to keep going on in that fashion.
No, please continue.
Well, so it's trying to, like the 3 of you right here, right? If all 3 of you are Java developers, why would you be better than these 2 if I'm hiring for one position, right? So I try and pull that out. And I want to make sure that it is legitimate, right? That you're the right person that I'm looking for. So we do a lot of that up front and prepare you for what's coming. If I have a good relationship with my client, then I'm going to know what's coming ahead of time, and I can prepare you a little bit more. That also helps, again, from an agency side, what the manager would prefer or what the culture is, per se, right? If these folks are looking for something specific, right? You could be the world's best data modeler, but he may not like you because you don't fit that environment where he would, right? You might be a better fit for Ryan's company. So that's, I guess, from an agency perspective. I've seen companies where they would take a coding test and send it out to a candidate. Do this first, and if you can do this, then you may be allowed to come into my kingdom. I've had one client say that to us, and I said, well, I know some consultants or some candidates will look at this and walk away, and they're good people. They want to talk to you first and understand what you're doing, what's your mission, what type of project work's involved. They want to talk to your manager. They'll do your test. you know, they'll whiteboard till the cows come home. But, you know, let's have a conversation first. You know, we do technical tests. We have a system that cover the basics, and then we have consultants where, you know, if it's something high-end, if I need an architect, right, I'm not just going to take your word. You're a great architect, right? So we'll test you out a little bit to make sure you cover the bases, as well as the background backing that up. But throwing that all out in the front door right away in their face, I don't know if I would agree with that.
I'd love to hear a success story. So if you could talk about maybe a recent process that landed into a successful hire, and if you could talk a little bit about you know, where that person was either sourced from, or where, you know, that initial introduction came from, and what made it a great experience not only for the candidate but also for your team too. Again,
because of the space I'm in, it's a little bit different than these three fine folks. So, you know, I have some success stories, maybe more than some, but from a different perspective. So, recently I had a candidate, and most of the folks that I work with, put on projects are consultants. Whereas I don't want to be presumptuous, but I'm guessing they're hiring full-time employees directly into the organization, maybe some contractors from time to time. So for us, the process is faster. They're mercenaries coming in, they do a job, they get the job done, they're off, they're on the next gig.
The mercenaries fit with the whole man and wife and jumping off buildings.
Violent around.
Okay, yeah, just call me Rambo. So I had one candidate or a consultant where the process was long. It took 2.5 weeks, and that's not insanely long, but it was a process nonetheless. So a few things, there's 3 things that mattered, right? One, he was patient, right? He had a good attitude and worked through the process. That meant a lot, right? He was always positive throughout, and it made it a pleasure, made me want to work for him and champion him into my client, right? Because I could have used other candidates. Secondly, he was very honest throughout the process. I cannot tell you how many times I've been lied to or made up stories, and I'm sure we all have war stories. We have some classics, right? You have to be honest. If you're late to an interview, own up to it. Life happens, guys. He was very honest about everything and kept me abreast of other activity, interviewing elsewhere, right? So that was big. He got the gig. He's on site. Now he's a senior person. And he was there. He realized, you need to get that?
You weren't in a musical, it's singing a song, so that's good.
That's all good.
My daughter, sorry.
That's okay. That's the boss. When he was on site, he was smart enough and savvy enough to understand this was not his, you know, the last gig he's ever going to have. So he networked, he made friends. One of those folks helped him get another gig after the project was over. So those 3 things do keep in mind, right? They're rudimentary or basic, but not a lot of people do all 3 all the time. So just a little PSA for all you folks, right? Sometimes the little things do matter, because I'm not selling or promoting microphones or pianos or projectors. I deal with human beings, right? And it's a very dynamic space, very interesting. Every day is different. And I've been doing this for, you know, since tennis balls are square. So, you know, again, we all share stories. So that's my 2 cents.
Red flags. What's a great tip or you know, a fun story that's happened to you that you can share that people can avoid? Is there something that, you know, they shouldn't say, shouldn't do? Again, thinking about this junior to intermediate developer role, what throws up a red flag that says I need to get this person out of my office, and how did they make it in here this far past all of my screening? So we won't say what happened that failed on the call. So let's say they got through the screening call or 2, they actually made into the office, and something happened that, you know, you wondered why and how they actually made it through.
Yeah, I got a couple. I have one that's funny. So we go, you know, I don't want to share nightmares, because, you know, there are some, and you try and do everything you can to screen a candidate, and you do your best to get to know someone, and something pops up. So back when I was a young little guppy in the business, when the Twin Towers were up, I was working with the Port Authority. Manager needs to hire an Oracle DBA. So I set up a phone interview. Girl nails it. I mean, I remember her name. It just rocked the interview. Well, obviously for other reasons I remember, because of the crazy story. But The manager's like, I want to hire this person, but I got to meet her. It's like, okay, no problem. Hey, Maria, we're going to the World Trade Center. Okay? You would think, right? So we get there. We go to security. I'm going to walk her up and meet the client. I figure, okay, this is going to be a handshake. 20 minutes later, I got a new consultant on board, right? We get to the counter. She goes, I can't go upstairs. What do you mean you can't go upstairs? I can't get on the elevator and go past the 13th floor. Huh? How do you screen for that?
On your resume,
Anybody?
you write not afraid of elevators.
Any suggestions on that one? So I look at her the way Mark just looked at me. He's like, what? I call up the manager and I says, listen, I can't make this up, so here you go. So we're talking for a couple of minutes. He goes, listen, let me come downstairs. Brings her to the 12th floor. They had a conference room.
They're trying.
He's trying. 2 hours later, he hires her and has her work remotely. So, hey, sometimes skill set does matter. I don't know what the takeaway is. You know, you kind of might want to tell your contact at the agency or your company about certain things you're afraid or you're not willing to do. That was a bugaboo. I think she should have said something, but regardless.
Like if you're afraid of spiders, don't work at the Museum of Spiders or something like that?
I have more, but we're going to, in the essence of saving a little time. That was a fun one.